What's up, guys? I'm LQ. This is the LQ Review. Thank you so much for joining me right here at my YouTube channel. This is where we talk about all the geeky, nerdy stuff that we love to talk about. Movies, video games, comic books, and TV shows. And right now, I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on The Walking Dead Season 10, Episode 20. And so, since I have AMC Plus, I get to watch the Sunday's episode a few days early. And I was able to catch Sunday's episode, tomorrow's episode. I caught it yesterday, and it is just like every other episode in this gap season. You know, that what's basically season 10 and a half. It's essentially like every other episode. All right, they focus on one character and they give that character some backstory, some exposition. And in this episode, the focus is really on Princess, Yukio, Eugene, and Yukio. Why can't I think of her name? It's not Yukio. I can't think of her name. But Eugene and Ezekiel. You know, they're taken by the Commonwealth and taken prisoner. And they're all put in separate rail cars. It kind of reminded me of the Terminus situation, where they were all taken hostage and put into rail cars at Terminus. In this case, one of the stormtroopers, they come inside Princess's rail car, and she gets interviewed by one of the leaders at the Commonwealth. And she is not cooperative. She's very abrasive and just not a very nice person to them. She's kind of intentionally being inflammatory and instigating them. And that does not help her situation at all. That makes them very abrasive to her in return. So she gets put back in the rail car, and she starts, essentially what's happening is she starts seeing visions. Right? She starts seeing things that aren't there. And we get a little peek into her psyche. And her psyche is not a healthy one. And she even goes into like some of the issues that she's had, like PTSD and things of that nature. And we learn that she's not exactly the most stable person in the world. So this episode did a good job of expanding on her eccentric behavior and making us kind of understand the mental state of Princess and where she's at. And it really, however, the episode really did nothing to really move the story forward. We got a little bit of a peek into the inner workings of the Commonwealth, into how they would bring on new people, and we got a little peek into kind of their hierarchy and how their soldiers kind of operate and what they think of themselves. Honestly, they think that they are these good, benevolent people who are just trying to survive. But it does very little to move the story forward, with the exception maybe being the last few seconds. You know, when they finally take Princess out of that rail car, we see potential for what's going to happen next. You know, the Commonwealth guard that we met, that we got to talk to, that Princess engaged with, physically engaged with, like I said, he gave us a peek into the inner workings of Commonwealth and how their hierarchy is set up. But other than that, there wasn't a whole lot of exposition that really made us understand the story in a bigger context outside of what's just happening in that rail car. And that, of course, is intentional, because these 6 episodes, I think they were filmed, if not planned, after season 11 was already filmed, or at least at the very least planned. I don't know if they're done filming season 11 yet, but these episodes were written after season 11 was written. So they're not going to be able to do anything that's going to really affect the story of season 11 that much. This has to all be very self-contained episodes. And again, this is a very self-contained episode. As I said, we learned a lot of the politics of the Commonwealth and the why, but we don't understand yet who is in charge and just how big and how big of a scope this community is. And if it's anything like the comics, I think that the fans of the show who don't read the comics are in for a shock, because this is a big, expansive community that operates largely as people did pre-apocalypse. Ezekiel got a lot of screen time in this episode, but it wasn't really Ezekiel, or was it? Probably not. So Ezekiel got a lot of screen time in this, but really no development. It was just Ezekiel kind of being there as a way of describing, as a way of explaining the mental state of Princess. He was the avatar for us to understand just how crazy Princess was. And we was kind of seeing that craziness through his eyes in a kind of removed way. Where he wasn't really there. She was imagining him, but that whole scenario allows us to understand her craziness. So I like the character more after this week's episode. And I always kind of liked the character in the comics. And again, she showed up near the end of the comics run. So it's not like she had this great long run in the comics. But I always liked her after she showed up. So I'm anxious to see and curious to see what they're going to do with this character long term. Long term, we're going into the last season. But I enjoyed the expansion that this character saw in this episode. And I hope that they can build on that in season 11. So out of all these standalone episodes, this was probably my favorite one. It was this or it was either this one or the one with Aaron and Gabriel, with Robert Patrick in it. It was either this one or that one that was my favorite one so far of these mid-season episodes. So, what did you think of The Walking Dead Season 10, Episode 20, which was basically the Princess episode? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your take on it. While you're down there, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I put out a lot of content, and I want to make sure that you're up to date with everything that I'm doing. And as always, thank you so much for joining me right here at the LQ Review, where we get to talk about all the geeky, nerdy stuff that we love to talk about. Thank you so much.